Hey, what's up motivators? Taren here. One of the biggest things that will enhance the performance of every single endurance athlete is figuring out your unique adaptation zone. This is the zone in which you're training hard enough to get a big response from all of your training and actually adapt to it and make improvements, but not so hard that your body is actually working so hard at just keeping itself alive and preventing overtraining. We're going to talk about how you can figure out your unique adaptation zone to make sure you're getting right in the sweet spot of the exact right amount of training for you, no matter what your goal. Let's get into it. When regular people want to do something personally amazing in an endurance event, they use motive training plans. Whether you're just getting started or you've done several events and want a little more structure to step up your game, we know what it takes to get amateurs to their goals, no matter how big or small. You can accomplish anything you want. You just need a plan designed for the unique needs of people with families, jobs, and a busy life. The motive training method is that plan to get you to the start line feeling confident and across the finish line feeling strong. The concept of the adaptation zone is that as you progress throughout your training, you want to stay within this band of going harder than being undertrained and not actually being prepared for a race, and being lower than being overtrained and not actually adapting and improving from the training that you're putting in. Working hard enough and staying out of this undertraining zone and staying up here in the zone of adaptation is really just a matter of motivation. As long as you can show up 4 or more times a week, you are going to be in the adaptation zone. The bigger challenge becomes, how do you stay away from this overtraining zone? This has been a big challenge with the entire industry because a lot of training plans and coaches are built around the concept of pushing athletes right up to the breaking point. Most of the feedback loops are actually entirely built around the athlete letting the coach know when they feel like they're in the overtraining zone, and it's not until the athlete is feeling very sore, very tired, very burnt out that the athlete is given the chance to actually come down back into the adaptation zone by receiving a fair bit of rest. The feedback mechanisms tend to be built around, how does the athlete feel? Are they tired? Are they motivated? Are they sore? The fact of the matter is that once an athlete gets the motivation to be out of undertraining and actually closer into overtraining, athletes are very, very good at convincing themselves and others that they're doing very well. So what tends to happen is the athlete might actually be over the adaptation zone, just hanging on by a thread, but telling the coach or the training plan that they're down here in the adaptation zone. So if you've ever felt like you've been working really hard but have shown up to a race feeling a little bit burnt out, a little bit tired, or having worked really hard but not getting the performances on race day, odds are that you're just spending too much time in the overtraining zone. Ideally, you spend 95% of your time in the adaptation zone because this is going to make sure that your body is always adapting and improving from the work that you're actually putting in. There won't be a single hour wasted because your body is going to make changes to every single workout that you produce. Finding what your unique range is going to be different for everyone. For a lot of pros who can handle a ton of training, it might be upwards of 35 hours down to 20 hours. But for most age groupers, what we experience is that around 12 hours of training down to somewhere around 5 hours of training is roughly the range that most people tend to feel the best in. This average of 12 hours is a guideline for year-round average hours of weekly training for an Ironman. Yeah, that's really all it takes for most people to start getting into the point of low return on investment and flirting with a little bit of overtraining. Fortunately, studies support that you can perform very, very well, if not better than a lot of athletes who are training more than 12 hours if your training plan is well balanced under 12 hours. As opposed to these subjective measures, which come with a lot of challenges, I think that what athletes should do is look for very tangible metrics that are much harder to trick. The measure that I really like is heart rate variability. Heart rate variability is the difference in the amount of time between each of your heartbeats. You don't want your heartbeat to beat very, very regularly like a metronome. This is an indication that your central nervous system is very taxed and it's just going through the motions of pumping the heart. What you want is a central nervous system where the heart pumps only when it needs it. The differences between the heartbeats are very, very minute, and you need a device to measure your HRV. What you want with your HRV readings is you want them to stay roughly within an average and slightly up and down from your normal average, trending up throughout the training plan. What happens with heart rate variability is the point at which you dip into overtraining is probably about 5 to 7 days before you actually feel it. So what heart rate variability allows you to do is track your central nervous system and your over or under training progress such that if you start dipping into overtraining, you immediately take 3 days of lighter training, bringing your training plan down into the optimal adaptation zone, as opposed to spending weeks or months in an overtraining situation. You start getting tangible metrics that you can pair with your unique sensations, so that as opposed to spending days or weeks in an overtrained state, you might be spending only a few hours, at which point you give yourself the rest that you need. If you find that you keep dipping into an overtraining state and your heart rate variability is getting taxed, then it's an indication that you need to either increase your amount of recovery from your training or decrease your training load. It's going to naturally get you into the point at which you're going to find your unique adaptation zone. Going through this process is really simple. All you need is a way to monitor your HRV, be it the app and your iPhone, or a Whoop strap, or an Oura ring. They're all very accurate. Take your daily reading, and as opposed to focusing on what your actual daily reading is, which tends to be very erratic, take that daily reading and enter it into a spreadsheet that calculates your 30-day average versus your recent 7-day average. When the 7-day average dips under the 30-day average, this is an indication that you need 3 days of easier training. If you dip under your 30-day average multiple times over the course of 2 months, then it's an indication that you need to back off on your training or increase your recovery. Doing this for 4 to 6 months in a row is going to keep you healthy during your training, and it's going to guide you into how many training hours is appropriate given your life circumstances. It's going to get you into your unique adaptation zone based on your availability of time, your stress levels, and the durability of your own personal central nervous system, which is unique for every single athlete. Without having hard data like this, it's going to be incredibly difficult for you to find this unique adaptation zone because you just don't have the objective measures to find out where it is. If you want to dive deeper into heart rate variability training, there is a video up on the screen that you can click on to go dive a little bit deeper into that, find out how to use this spreadsheet a little bit more in depth, and how to execute excellent HRV for training. Hopefully you found this helpful. Later, motivators.